She couldn't walk another step, but the cowboy refused to leave her behind. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Colorado wilderness as Savannah Pierce stumbled through the dense underbrush. Her elegant city boots, so perfect for boardroom meetings in Denver, now felt like instruments of torture against her blistered feet. Each step sent sharp pain shooting up her legs. But she forced herself to continue. She had been walking for 3 days now. 3 days since her car had broken down on the remote mountain road. 3 days since her phone had lost signal. 3 days since she'd realized that her weekend getaway to find herself had turned into something far more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. The irony wasn't lost on her. Savannah Pierce, the woman who commanded million-dollar deals and never showed weakness, was now completely at the mercy of the unforgiving wilderness. Her designer jacket was torn. Her perfectly styled auburn hair hung in tangled waves around her face, and her throat felt like sandpaper from dehydration. But what bothered her most wasn't the physical discomfort. It was the growing realization that she might not make it out of these mountains alive. As she crested a small hill, her legs finally gave out. She collapsed onto a fallen log, breathing heavily, staring at the endless expanse of pine trees that stretched in every direction. The silence was deafening. No car engines, no cell phone notifications, no sounds of civilization, just the whisper of wind through the branches and the distant cry of a hawk circling overhead. That's when she heard it, the soft thud of horse hooves against the forest floor. Savannah looked up, squinting through the dappled sunlight filtering through the canopy. A figure emerged from between the trees, a man on horseback, moving with the easy confidence of someone who belonged in this wild place. As he drew closer, she could make out more details. Weathered leather chaps, a dark cowboy hat pulled low over his eyes, and a face that spoke of years spent under the open sky. The cowboy reined in his horse about 10 feet away, studying her with careful brown eyes. He was younger than she'd first thought, maybe early 30s, with dark hair visible beneath his hat and a stubbled jaw that suggested he'd been out on the trail for days. "Ma'am," he said, his voice carrying a slight southern drawl, "you look like you could use some help." Savannah tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. Pride battled with desperation, and desperation won. My car broke down. I've been walking for 3 days. I don't even know where I am anymore." The cowboy dismounted in one fluid motion, his boots hitting the ground with practiced ease. He approached slowly, as if she were a wounded animal that might bolt at any sudden movement. "Name's Cole Brennan," he said, removing his hat briefly in an old-fashioned gesture of politeness. "And you're about 15 miles from the nearest road, heading in the wrong direction." The words hit her like a physical blow. 15 miles. In the wrong direction. All that walking, all that pain, and she'd only made things worse. "I'm Savannah," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Savannah Pierce." Cole knelt beside the log where she sat, his expression serious but kind. "When's the last time you had water, Savannah?" She tried to remember. The small bottle she'd had in her car had run out on the first day. Since then, she'd been drinking from streams when she found them, but that had been yesterday morning, I think. Without hesitation, Cole reached for the canteen hanging from his belt and offered it to her. "Small sips," he advised. "Don't want to make yourself sick." The water was warm but tasted better than champagne. Savannah forced herself to drink slowly, even though every instinct screamed at her to drain the entire container. When she finally handed it back, Cole was studying her with those penetrating brown eyes. "You're hurt," he observed, nodding toward her feet. Savannah glanced down at her boots. Blood had seeped through the leather in several places. "It's not that bad," she lied. Cole's eyebrows rose slightly. "Mind if I take a look?" Before she could protest, he was gently removing her boots. The sight that greeted them both was worse than she'd thought. Her feet were covered in blisters, some burst and bleeding, others swollen and angry-looking. Cole whistled low under his breath. "Ma'am, you shouldn't be walking on these." "How far did you say you've come?" "I don't know exactly. Maybe 20 miles. 25. Cole looked up at her with something that might have been respect in those boots. "That's impressive, and incredibly foolish, but impressive." Despite everything, Savannah found herself almost smiling. "The story of my life." From his saddlebags, Cole retrieved a small medical kit. His hands were surprisingly gentle as he cleaned her wounds and applied antiseptic. Each touch sent pain shooting through her feet, but she gritted her teeth and didn't complain. "These need proper medical attention," he said as he wrapped her feet in clean bandages. "But this should help for now." As he worked, Savannah found herself studying his profile. There was something about Cole Brennan that didn't quite add up. His hands were calloused from ranch work, but his speech patterns suggested education. His clothes were practical and well-worn, but his horse was magnificent, a beautiful chestnut mare with intelligent eyes and expensive tack. "Doing out here?" she asked. Cole's hands paused for just a moment before resuming their careful minute. "Checking on cattle. We've got herds scattered across these mountains." It was a reasonable answer, but something in his tone made her think there was more to the story. Before she could pursue it further, he was helping her put her boots back on, his touch professional but somehow intimate in the quiet forest setting. "Can you ride?" he asked, standing and brushing off his knees. Savannah blinked. "A horse? I took lessons when I was 12. Close enough." Cole moved to his mare's side, running a soothing hand along her neck. "This is Luna. She's got the best disposition of any horse I've ever known. She'll take care of you." The idea of climbing onto that large animal sent a spike of fear through Savannah's chest. "Maybe I could just walk with you if you could point me toward the road." Cole shook his head firmly. "Not on those feet, and not 15 miles. You wouldn't make it." There was no judgment in his voice, just simple fact. Savannah looked down at her bandaged feet, then back at the horse. Luna was watching her with large, gentle brown eyes that seemed almost human in their intelligence. "What if I fall off?" "I won't let that happen," Cole said simply. Something in his tone made her believe him, against every instinct screaming at her to maintain control, to not depend on anyone else. Savannah nodded. Getting her onto Luna's back was an awkward process that involved Cole practically lifting her into the saddle. Once she was seated, with her hands gripping the saddle horn, Cole swung up behind her with easy grace. His presence at her back was both comforting and unsettling. She could feel the warmth of his body, smell the scent of leather and pine, and something uniquely masculine. "Comfortable?" he asked, his breath warm against her ear. Comfortable wasn't exactly the word she'd use, but she nodded anyway. "Where are we going?" "My cabin's about 5 miles north of here. You can rest up, get those feet properly tended to, and I'll radio for help to get you back to town." As Luna began walking, Savannah had to fight not to tense up. The mare's gait was smooth and rhythmic, but sitting so high off the ground felt precarious. Cole seemed to sense her nervousness because his arm came around her waist, holding her. "Steady, just relax," he murmured. "Luna knows these trails better than I do." They rode in silence for a while, the only sounds the soft thud of Luna's hooves and the creak of leather. Despite her nervousness, Savannah found herself beginning to relax into the rhythm of the horse's movement. The forest around them was beautiful in a way she'd been too panicked to appreciate before. Towering pines reaching toward a brilliant blue sky, wildflowers dotting the meadows they passed through, the distant sound of a stream bubbling over rocks. "It's beautiful out here," she said softly. "Yeah, it is." Cole's voice held a note of pride. "Been ranching this land for 3 generations. My grandfather homesteaded here back in the 1920s, and you've never wanted to leave." Cole was quiet for so long that Savannah wondered if she overstepped. Finally, he spoke. "I did leave. For a while." Something in his tone discouraged further questions, so Savannah let the subject drop. They continued riding through the afternoon, stopping occasionally to rest Luna and let Savannah stretch her aching legs. Cole shared his water and some jerky from his saddlebags, and gradually, Savannah began to feel more human. As the sun started to sink toward the western peaks, they crested a ridge, and Savannah saw Cole's cabin nestled in a small valley below. It was rustic but charming: log walls, a stone chimney, and a covered porch that looked out over a meadow where several horses grazed peacefully. Smoke curled from the chimney, and warm light glowed in the windows. "Someone's home," Savannah observed. "Just left the fire banked this morning," Cole replied. "Gets cold up here at night, even in summer." As they approached the cabin, Savannah felt a mixture of relief and something else she couldn't quite name. After 3 days of terror and desperation, she was finally safe. But more than that, there was something about this place, about Cole, that felt like sanctuary in a way she hadn't experienced in years.